Now, how many of you know that 9 years ago, among the economies of the world, India was classified as amongst the weakest 5 economies? There are many parameters to decide how strong the macroeconomic fundamentals of an economy are. And in almost every single parameter, India and Indian institutions performed extremely poorly. As a result of that, India was considered to be one of the 5 weakest economies in the world. Fragile means weak. Fragile means something that is not strong. And India was one of those 5. Fast forward to today, India is considered to be one of the strongest economies in the world. We are currently the world's fastest growing major economy, with our macroeconomic fundamentals all in control. And just very recently, we put behind Britain, which was our colonizer for almost a couple of centuries behind, and we have emerged today as the 5th largest economy in the world and firmly on the path to becoming the 3rd largest economy in the world very shortly. Now, how did this transformation take place over the last so many years? There was no magic wand that either the Prime Minister or somebody just waved and things changed. There were a lot of work that was done. There was a lot of work that was done over the last 9 years, which are the building blocks that transform the country from fragile 5 to top 5. And in the course of the next few minutes, we are going to have a bird's eye view of what are these most important milestones or building blocks that the country put in place to achieve this incredible transformation. In that context, let's move to see where the country stands today. From sports to space and science to startups, this truly is India's decade. How many of you recollect those days when India would participate in a Commonwealth Games or an Asian Games or an Olympics kind of a global competition, and we would have just 1 or 2 medals that India would get? But today, if you are following the Prime Minister's timeline on Twitter and Instagram, every couple of hours the Prime Minister is tweeting one or the other athlete winning either a gold medal or a silver or a bronze in all of our Asian championships that are currently going on. This is something that we are witnessing every day. We see a Neeraj Chopra winning gold. We see the Indian cricket team doing well. We see for the first time so many non-cricketing sports icons being celebrated in the country. We see a Pragnananda go and bring glory to the country at international forums through his prowess in chess. We see Indian scientists create marvels in science, not just in the vaccination sector, where the country produced not 1, but 2 indigenous vaccines, and led the world and showed the world how we could vaccinate the largest number of people in the shortest possible time in the most diverse country with the least amount of money spent. To being the first country to land on the south side of the moon, to having ambitious, audacious space ambitions to understand better the nature of the sun, to also planning the first manned lunar mission from India, Gaganyaan, which is going to fructify very soon. So science to space to startups. You and I truly belong to that generation, and in this city, which is India's startup city, 9 years ago, we didn't even have vocabulary, words like startup, accelerator, bootstrapping, venture capitalist, angel investor, ease of doing business, these words didn't even exist in our lexicon. Today, we have 91,000 registered startups in India, and India is amongst the global hot hubs of startup ecosystem in the world today. So this is truly India's decade. Now, while this is India's decade, how was the scene 9 years ago? Because we need to understand and compare and contrast what good governance can do, what it has delivered. To understand the value of that, we must always compare and contrast to what was bad. What did we fix? So we spoke about this, and let's see where the just look at these graphs. You will know how much of a change we have made. Now, if you look at the GDP growth, we were growing at 4.5%, and now we are at 7.8%. So look at what the scene was with inflation. Inflation was 8.7% in 2013. Now, while the GDP growth has gone 7.8%, the inflation has come down to 4.8%. This is a massive change that has happened over the last 9 years. And we speak of investment, right? Like, why is FDI important? All of you are students from engineering, right? Once you pass out, the fourth year, what's the discussion? Namdel placement agbeku, navel hogbeku. This is the discussion, right? Now, if you don't have companies that come and invest in India, that do not hire you, what will happen to the large human resource that is getting out of our colleges every year? Which is why FDI is so important for a country like India today at its developmental cycle. Now, FDI in 2013 was $36 billion. And in 2023, it's $85 billion this year. That's the amount of new companies coming here, people from abroad coming and investing in India because they believe in India today. They believe that India is going to be, is the bright spot in an otherwise gloomy economic world. Which is why you see $85 billion being invested in India. Look at the exports. Now, what is FDI going to do? When FDI comes, you not only get jobs, you start the entire cycle of the economy gets dynamism. As a result, you start producing more. When you start producing more, the country starts exporting more. And when you export more, the country earns more foreign exchange. It earns more revenue. The country becomes rich as a whole. Now, exports. Look at where we were, and we have more than doubled our exports. We were at $300 billion, and we today are exporting $770 billion. That is the highest ever in independent India's history. Naturally, I said if you produce more, export more, your forex increases. We were at $270 billion. We are today at $600 billion. That gives a lot of leverage for India to take important decisions at the global table because we have that much of forex with us. All of this is interlinked. You do well on one side, you earn foreign exchange, your exports increase, your FDI increases, your forex increases, your current account deficit reduces, all of this. So this is something that is, this one graph will indicate to you at a macroeconomic level the massive changes that has taken place. Now, why were we doing bad then? When in 2013, I was in final year of my college. I don't know, I think you must be in your schools that time. If you would open your newspapers then, there were 3 or 4 consistent subjects in headlines, in the newspaper headlines that you would read that time. I'm sure if some of you were the geeky nerds that some of you look like you are, and somebody who were interested in, say, a quiz or, these competitions, you would remember that the headlines had three themes. One, every single day in the newspaper, you would read of one or the other major scam. How many scams did we read of? 1,76,000 crore 2G scam. We read of 10 lakh crore coal scam, Augusta Westland scam, Commonwealth Games scam. From sports to space to procurement of army weapons to auctioning of telecommunication networks and waves, in every single aspect there was unfathomable corruption. Now when there is absolute corruption at that level, there are two things that takes place. One, governance, good governance comes to a grinding halt, because the political leadership is focused on enriching itself and not doing something good for the larger whole. So governance comes to a halt. Policy paralysis becomes a thing of everyday pattern. It becomes a characteristic of governance. So that was something that was there. You saw scams, and that led to political instability, it led to economic failures, it led to policy paralysis. As a result of that, all of these took place. Look at this one. Now, once all of those are changed, watch this. Yes, look at this growth. This is a very interesting chart. That's where we will be, 2050. Now I spoke about the important building blocks. Now what were these building blocks? All of this was done with a comprehensive focus, a 360-degree understanding of touching every aspect of the country. We leveraged technology to bring welfare to the last mile, last man in the line. We formalized the largely informal economy, again leveraging the power of digital India. We brought in major economic reforms that strengthened our banking institutions, our lending institutions, that helped bring energy and dynamism to our economy. The country has spent enormous amount of money in the last few years to build physical infrastructure in the country. Airports, ports, roads, highways, medical schools, colleges, universities. That's what we have done. We have tried to encourage manufacturing in India, and that's the Make in India. The biggest example of the success of Making India is the mobile phone that is in your hand today. Just 6 years ago, India was a very, very minute player in manufacturing of mobile phones in the world. Today, India is the second largest manufacturer of mobile phones in the world after China. And even the Apple 15 that was recently launched is being built here in Namma Bengaluru. So that is the transformation that we have seen in Make in India. There's honesty and transparency in governance, which has, of course, led to all of these things. Most importantly, the last decade has seen massive amount of importance given to women-led development. I will explain to you when we reach there about how that has been transformative. Sports, security, and all of this has resulted in India becoming truly a very important global player. The biggest example of that was how India very successfully led the G20 presidency and made sure that we came out with a unanimous consensus regarding our statement. No other country earlier had able to do this in G20 history. That shows our rising global standing. One of the very first things that the Prime Minister did in 2014 was to understand that technology plays a very vital role in delivery of goods, services and welfare. He understood this and put in place resources, institutions which will leverage the power of technology to deliver governance to the last man in the line at population scale. Now, across the world, you have examples of governments building public infrastructure, meaning roads, ports, bus stands, railway lines and connectivity. All of this is physical infrastructure, right? All over the world, the primary responsibility of governments have always been to build physical infrastructure. The only example in the world today where government has built public digital infrastructure is only India. The only example in the world. Now, what is this public digital infrastructure? Public digital goods. The government built an open source platform, an interoperable platform, upon which private entrepreneurs and private engineers and private companies could build a lot of other solutions to do financial inclusion, to last mile delivery of services through DBT, through collect tolls in highways in a better way, to help digital payments between one person and another person at two different points of geographies in the country. So what the government did was to first build a very, very capable, state-of-the-art public digital infrastructure, make it open source and make it interoperable so that the large human resource in India could leverage it and build products and solutions upon it. Now, how has that helped? Just look at the welfare. This is something that will blow your mind away, friends. I want you to take a minute to understand the importance of just this one scheme of financial inclusion. 2014, the Prime Minister started the project called Jan Dhan accounts. How many of you have heard of Jan Dhan accounts? I'm so happy to see so many hands going up, right? What is Jan Dhan accounts? Zero balance accounts were opened for the first time. How many people opened it? 50 crore people opened a bank account for the first time. Now imagine the importance of this. 50 crore people, meaning almost 50% of the country's population did not even have a bank account 70 years after independence. So now if you don't have a bank account, what does that do? One, you are not part of the formal economy of the country itself. Right? Now if you don't have a bank account, you cannot get a loan to start something new. If you don't have a bank account, you cannot be part of a formal savings network. If you don't have a bank account, you will not have access to as basic a product as an insurance product. Now when you don't have a bank account, you don't have savings, you don't have insurance, you don't get access to credit, and with inflation growing at 8.7% as it was growing in 2013, you will perpetually be in a state of poverty. When 50% of the country's population does not have access to bank accounts and they are outside of the formal economy, how can you expect people to be empowered to come out of poverty? So only the rich kept getting richer while the poor kept getting poor. The very first thing that the country did was to launch this financial inclusion program that was built upon this digital public good infrastructure, and that was the Jan Dhan account. 50 crore people became part of the formal banking system in the country. There is no parallel in the whole of the world for a population scale financial inclusion program, the one that the country did under the leadership of the Prime Minister. No example in the world. The largest number of people becoming part of a formal banking economy in the shortest possible time. Now, how did that happen? It happened because we had Aadhaar and we had mobile connectivity. Now, that mobile connectivity also, like because we built that public infrastructure good, we leveraged power of digital. In 6 months, Jio got subscribers all over the world, all over the country, in such a short period of time. Because why? We could do eKYC. We could open a bank account easily because we could do eKYC. So we leveraged digital public goods to bring about a telecommunication revolution. We seeded the mobile along with the identity, which was the Aadhaar, and then we seeded that with a bank account. So that became the JAM Trinity. That is Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile. Now, what has this JAM Trinity achieved for India? Just look at this. What has this JAM Trinity achieved for India? Now, I explained to you what not having a bank account will do. Now, because somebody has an access to bank account, do you know the Prime Minister gives a subsidy, a support money of 6,000 rupees to Indian farmers every year? What is it called? Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. 6,000 rupees. Do you remember that earlier it was said that if 1 rupee is sent from Delhi, only 15 paise reaches the end beneficiary? Because the 85 paise is eaten up by middlemen through the whole system. Now, because of JAM, Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, at a click of a button, if the Prime Minister sends 6,000 rupees to a specific targeted farmer, he gets all of the 6,000 rupees in real time, no money leaked whatsoever. Not just that, he even gets an SMS from the bank saying 6,000 rupees is credited to your account. So all of these, Jan Dhan Yojana helped banking the unbanked. Mudra Yojana gave access to funds, funding the unfunded. I spoke about the DBT. I spoke earlier about how during the Congress era, the earlier era, 1,76,000 crores was lost in just one scam, the 2G scam. Just using DBT, the country has saved 2 lakh crore rupees, which otherwise would have gone leaked in the system. 2 lakh crore rupees. Because we have the Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile network in place. All of this is a result of leveraging technology. This is a very, very important point. I want all of you to have a look at this. 13 crore Indians have come out of poverty between 2016 and 2019. Do you know, friends, what does that, you know the scale of that number? 13.5 crore people. It's higher than combined populations of so many European countries. 13.5 crore people. And see the time space. 2015 to 2021, in just about 4 years, this is what has happened. And go back to the earlier statement that I made when we spoke about financial inclusion. Because such a large number of people didn't have access to the banking facility itself, there was no savings, there was no credit, there was nothing. So they were still in perpetual poverty. If somebody asks you why electing the right government is important, because generally, we feel all politicians are the same, all political parties are the same, everything is the same. We have a sense of indifference towards this. The reason why good governance is important is because it finally impacts truly the life of 13.5 crore people. These 13.5 crore people have come out of poverty because of good governance. This, of course, is going to have multiple effects. I want all of you to spend a minute on this slide. It's a very interesting slide. The Prime Minister had spoken about this in one of the Economic Times summit or something. Now, for example, how many of you have heard of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan? Superb, everyone has. Now, what did we do in Swachh Bharat Abhiyan? We built toilets. How many did we build? 10 crore toilets was constructed. Okay, all over the country. I think I have not updated my numbers properly because the Prime Minister is building toilets fast, higher pace than we are updating our PPT. So this is 11 crore toilets that were built. 11 crore toilets and 100% rural sanitation in the country. I mean, women folk in this country, until a few years ago, didn't have access to basic toilet infrastructure. Now, when you see 11 crore toilets built, the very first result you will see is, okay, we have better access to toilets, and that is what we see, but that is not where it stops. Now, access to good toilets has second order and third order reforms. Just look at this. Now, because we built 11 crore toilets, and that has had a positive impact on health of people, a study shows that on an average, a rural household in India is saving 8,000 rupees per year because of better sanitation facilities. 8,000 rupees per year. Now look at Jal Jeevan Mission. Now what is Jal Jeevan Mission? Large section of this country did not have access to piped drinking water. Something that all of us in this auditorium take for granted. Women folk, especially women folk, because you would have never seen a man do this mostly. Women folk with heavy tumblers on their head, buckets on their, a bucket in their hand, a big tumbler over their head, and one on the side, and sometimes a small baby who she would be taking care of. That's something, I still remember this so vividly. I was thinking about this yesterday. When we were in school, and we would say attend a painting competition, and if the subject was rural India or village, right? There were 2-3 things that we would always paint. And if that was not there, then whoever would evaluate the painting would feel we have not painted a complete picture of an Indian village. One, we would mandatorily have a farm lady carrying multiple utensils of water. Right? Wasn't this a part of the picture? We would find we would find buffaloes, we would find domestic animals at the local lake or water body, where people would share that water along with that buffalo or some other domestic animal. On one side, you would find somebody cleaning the buffalo, and on the other side, you would also find somebody defecating in public. right? This was a picture of an Indian rural village. And you would not put, and of course, you would never put a proper pakka road anywhere. And then you would, sometimes you would put thatched roofs. That was the concept of a house you would put. The moment you want to write village, you have to put a thatched house. Just imagine how the rural infrastructure, the picture of an Indian village has changed. Now there is no public defecation because you have 11 crore toilets built under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. That is a thing of the past. You will no more paint the tired, worn out Indian farm lady with multiple utensils carrying water, because now 13 crore households in the country have got piped access to drinking water. You will no more draw the picture of a pothole-ridden, non-existent village road, because the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana has brought pakka roads, asphalted roads to the remotest corners of the country. And you will not paint the picture of a house with a thatched roof, because you have 4 crore pakka houses built under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana with proper roof on their head. You won't paint the picture of a rural India where a woman is carrying firewood over her head, because we have now provided 9.6 crore homes with LPG connections so that there is smokeless kitchen at homes. I mean, isn't this something that we have experienced? Like 10 years ago, when somebody would say, draw the picture of a rural India, that is the picture that we would draw. If a few years from now, a kid in school would be asked to draw a picture of rural India, this is the kind of picture that she will paint. This is true transformation. Now, I spoke about broadly the digitization of Indian economy. 99% of Indians have Aadhaar, and thanks to that, government supplies, farmers through e-Naam, everywhere we are having digital India that is showing its way. 2 examples. FASTag, which again leverages digital technology, is bringing in so much revenue from Indian highways to the government, which was otherwise lost. These are all just small examples that we have given. Now, when we speak of startups and entrepreneurship, there's one important point I want all of you to remember. When we speak of startups and entrepreneurship, we generally tend to speak about the 91,000 registered DPIIT startups, right? Which are working in some, say, software space or tech space or something. But entrepreneurship is not just restricted to building tech startups. Entrepreneurship can be something much, much wider. And that is where this very important scheme of the Prime Minister called the Prime Minister Mudra Yojana falls into picture. Now, how many people have got loans? How many loans have been sanctioned? 43 crore loans have been sanctioned. And what is the total value of the money that has been granted? 25 lakh crore rupees. Now, to whom has these loans been given? Up to 50-60% of the beneficiaries of Mudra Yojana, Stand-Up Yojana, they are all women. Now, what are these women going to do? They will start a small unit to manufacture achar. They will start, along with their self-help group, a small unit to make some product with a very interesting creative embroidery. They will start selling papad. I was in Hubli recently. A self-help group is exporting jolad roti to Australia, funded by Pradhan Mantri Yojana. So entrepreneurship is something that has always been a part of the Bharatiya DNA. But we never facilitated an ecosystem for an Indian by giving him the right approvals, giving him credit to start something. So if the 13.5 crore people coming out of poverty that we saw earlier, because 43 crore loans have been given. And now imagine if somebody is given one loan, you can't run a business alone. You will need to hire one person at least. Right? When you hire one additional person and you start doing some business, you will create that many employment. And when you create employment, you naturally start putting money in people's accounts. And that's when people get out of poverty. So that is the strength of this one number, 43 crore loans. We covered everything. We covered, how the Aadhaar identity, the FASTag, everything has created. So all of that has created, like I said, great buoyancy in the employment space in India. I won't take much time, just take a minute to read all of these and you'll be astonished how we have leveraged the power of digital. 220 crore plus vaccines provided with the help of the CoWIN app. I was in Norway recently, and the Norwegian authorities were still asking us questions on how we could vaccinate a country of our size with our diversity using the power of digital. Because the population of Norway is less than the population of Bangalore. And here we are 220 crore plus vaccines done in the most seamless fashion. When you should get your first dose, it also sent a reminder to your second dose, which is the place you have to go, when you should go, appointment, and there was also a certificate of Modi ji smiling in the vaccination certificate. Right? This is the power of digital, just vaccination. Look at this, FASTag. Not only are we preventing fights at toll booths and all these fake, self-appointed leaders who are trying to cheat the toll system, but we have reduced the time from 734 seconds at a toll plaza to just 47 seconds now. The country wants to go ahead faster. 34 crore RuPay cards. 5.5 crore registrations in Umang app. 6.73 crore applications in the National Scholarship Portal. These are all students like you who have used digital and scholarships to get their scholarship funds. 6.73 crore. Everything, look at those numbers. 114 crore plus people have mobile connections. India is the world's largest connected democracy today. 114 crore people. And of course, this is something that all of us have grown into. I don't think our generation at least remembers how to send money. I was recently cleaning our house, the cupboards and everything. I came across this old letter that my father had written to my grandfather when he was a student. Asking my grandfather, of course, to send 6 rupees money order. And my father had written this letter, and after a week or 4 or 5 days later, he gets a reply from my grandfather, where the grandfather puts 2 conditions. That one, he'll need 2 more days or 3 more days to arrange 6 rupees, and he'll not be able to send all of 6 rupees at once, but will send 4 rupees. And that once 4 rupees is sent, Appa should maintain accounts of where every paisa is being spent, and that when he comes to visit him next, he should give this account. So to send 6 rupees 35 years ago, it took 1 week, and it was so difficult because that was the financial and digital and economic position in the country. And today, whether it's you or me, whether it's not just in India, because India today through UPI is signing memorandum of understandings with Singapore, with France and multiple nations to export our UPI technology at a drop of a button, just like how we send a message on WhatsApp, Indians are sending money from one place to the other with that same ease. And how many? Look at this number. We are the first in the world when it comes to real-time online transaction, and we are accounting 46% of the global online transactions. Just the scale that India operates at. This is the power of digital. Spoken about all of these things, let's go ahead. We spoke about economic reforms because we started with Jandan. We spoke about how banking structure was strengthened, how banks were in a very precarious situation. Now, there's one point that I want all of you to remember. Banks are an extremely important part of the economy, right? Because if you go to a bank and if the bank does not have money to give you a loan, where will you get capital to start your business? So if banks are unhealthy, then the economy is unhealthy. There was a huge NPA problem. Now what is an NPA? Non-performing asset. Now what is a non-performing asset? The banker gives loan to a person for various reasons other than verifying the economic credentials of the guy, and that guy defaults and doesn't pay. Now the health of the bank reduces. So that was a huge problem. So we fixed the problems of banks, and as a result of all of that, look at these. We are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. We have 100 plus unicorns, of which about 50 of them are in Namma Bengaluru. And there's 100-fold increase in startups. That's the... Now, I want all of you to take a minute just to focus on this. And this is something that we have all experienced. Okay? Now, what is this? This is the Gati Shakti. What is Gati Shakti? It's focus on infrastructure. Whoever would visit a foreign country and come back, whether it was our cousins or an uncle, aunt and everything, the first thing that they would say, or the first thing that we would experience when we would go out of the country is, hey man, look at their airports, they're so good. The roads are so good. They have such fantastic metro. This is what made the difference between a developed country and a developing nation like ours. We have spent enormous amount of money the last few years to build physical infrastructure in India. And this is the physical infrastructure. What did we do? We built airports, more airports in the last 7 years than were built in the last 70 years. We have added more number of medical seats and post-graduation medical seats and more medical colleges in the last 9 years than were collectively built in 75 years. In just 23-24, just this year, 10 lakh crore rupees is being spent on capital infrastructure building. As Bengalurians, I want you to understand this. From 30 years, we had been asking for Bengaluru suburban rail. 30 years. Okay, when I was in school, I still remember there were protests, demands, petitions going, people asking, bring suburban rail, suburban rail. So what was then the suburb of Bengaluru has now become urban. But suburban never came to Bangalore. We got suburban rail 3 years ago, and the work for suburban rail is started. It's going to become a reality in 2026, and 10 lakh Bengalurians can travel every day in just the suburban rail. Metro. In 2014, Bengaluru had 7 kilometers of metro. Today, Bengaluru has 78 kilometers of metro, and next year we will have 140 kilometers of metro. We had one airport, and that airport was doing business to its brim. We needed a next airport. 2019, the Prime Minister lays the foundation stone for Bengaluru Airport Metro, Bengaluru Airport Terminal 2. 2 years of COVID. Despite that, 2022, last year, Kempegowda International Airport Terminal 2 is thrown open for public. Those of you who have traveled there will vouch that that is one of the best airport terminals, not just in India, but it is at a global level, it's one of the best airport terminals. That's the amount of money that we have spent. Just look at ports. We have added 725 metric tons capacity in our major ports we have added. Pace of construction, 2.4 times we have increased more construction. That's why, we inaugurated, in 2 years, we are also, we lay the foundation stone. In 2 years, we are also inaugurating it. That's the pace at, I spoke about metro, the 7 to 78%. Look at that. All over the country, there has been a 368% rise in metro connectivity in India. 368%. Natural gas pipeline, everywhere. How many of you have traveled in the Vande Bharat train? Nice. Isn't it truly remarkable? Like from the times where, we would go and take a normal general compartment ticket and there was this, Marad halge irta itala. Remember those days where there was this wooden benches and then you couldn't, put your, recline the seat back or anything? From there to Vande Bharat, that's the transformation from fragile 5 to top 5. So we spoke about assets, we spoke about banking regulation. I just want to go ahead because this, just look at that, just this one, 11,000 crore fraud in Punjab National Bank. This was in I think the 2013 article. All of our bank health is increased. All of these. Now, when banks have increased, people have gotten bank accounts, they are getting more skilled, they are getting jobs. Now look at the Make in India. We saw how exports have increased, right? That is the biggest indicator of the success of Make in India. Mobile phone se lekar toys tak, kapde se lekar agro products tak. We have truly brought so much of dynamism to the Make in India, this thing. And there's just this morning, Ashwini Vaishnavji, our telecommunications minister, inaugurated a 6G lab of Nokia here in Bengaluru, which is going to be working on cutting-edge 6G technology and its possible solutions and implications for real-world problems for the next generation. That's how fast-forward Bengaluru is today. I'm going to share this with all of you. You can read this later because there's so much work that has happened. India has become the third largest automobile market in the world. There is a 23 times increase in defense exports. We were just importing from every country because we didn't, even though we had the talent, the resource, everything to manufacture ammunitions, arms, we just did not have the will to do it. 23 times increase in the manufacturing of defense exports. That's something that we have seen. And all top, whether it's Airbus, whether it's Boeing. Look at this, electronic goods, marine exports, toy exports. In every specific thing you see massive improvement. There's only one slide I want all of you to take when it comes to women empowerment. Women, for a very long time, were neglected in the national scheme of things, of delivery of services and the national growth story. Today we have schemes that the Prime Minister has envisaged from the birth of a child to the elderly care of a woman. A 360-degree, a comprehensive view of life of a woman. Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Poshan Abhiyan, then Khelo India, Jyoti scheme to support her aspiring learner. Then we have the Stand-Up Mudra Yojana, women working hostels. Then the mother, when she becomes the mother, we have schemes like Matru Vandana, Indra Dhanush, give vaccination, strengthen her. Then you have when the elderly care, whether it's pension, Shakti Vandana, all of that, and on top of all of this, the Prime Minister has also made for the first time a historic 33% reservation for women in our parliament and in our assemblies to provide for a women-led development in the country. This is something that has translated totally. And of course, you know that there's an increase in maternity leave. There's a ban on triple talaq. Women, especially belonging to the minority community, cannot be treated as property, as chattel anymore. They have got dignity and rights that the Prime Minister has given thanks to banning of triple talaq. And I spoke about the 4 crore homes that we have built under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. The interesting thing is, of the 4 crore homes built, 2.5 crore homes are registered in the name of the woman of the household. Now, this is something that I will conclude with. Just read this slide. A decade ago, I don't know if you guys remember, but if not, please talk to your parents. Any major festival that would come, whether it was Deepavali, whether it was Yugadi, whether it was, Ganpati, any festival, at will, terrorists were orchestrating attacks. Akshardham, Guwahati Temple, Mumbai 26/11, Bangalore IISc terror attack, Coimbatore terror attacks. Terror attacks was a regular feature in our life, and we kind of had to live with it. Friends, in the last 1 decade, outside of conflict zones, meaning outside of a zone like, say, Jammu Kashmir, or outside of a conflict zone, say, some portions of the Northeast, there has been no civilian casualties all over the country because of terror attacks. Zero. Zero. This is something that we have to understand the magnitude of this, of how big a change this is. There's a very interesting video that was, running currency on social media recently of the earlier defense minister of the country. He was asked, this is in parliament, This is in parliament. He was asked, sir, why are you not building roads in Arunachal Pradesh, in Ladakh, in Uttarakhand, in the areas, villages that are bordering China? While China is building such large infrastructure in our border villages, why are you not doing it? To this question, the earlier defense minister speaks in the parliament and says, this is our strategy. If we build roads and make good infrastructure, the enemy will come inside easily. I am not kidding. I am not joking. The defense minister of India makes this statement in the floor of the parliament and says, this is our strategy of this government. That if we don't want to build infrastructure, road infrastructure in the border areas, because that is our tactic of defense. Because if we build roads, the enemy can come inside easily. I have posted this, and for your benefit, I will post it again. Today you go and have a look at my social media channels, just for the shock that it will instill you. That was the official position of a government. In the last decade, we have built 6,800 kilometers of roads in India's border areas. The reason why there is a decline in terror attacks inside of India is because the enemy outside knows that we are building infrastructure there and we are ready to face him there. That is what has led to strengthening of the country in all of these aspects, and this has finally resulted in India redefining the world order. We are today no more a participant. We are a leader. We are an important voice in global order. You must have heard how even students from different countries who were in Ukraine at the time of getting evacuated would just hold an Indian flag, because they knew that if they had an Indian flag, they would be protected. Because that's the global standing of India. We have given vaccines to different countries. We have given medicines to different countries. We are there to provide for other countries in terms of infrastructure help. And most importantly, there are many, many international alliances that the country is leading today Take, for example, the International Solar Alliance. India is the founding member. International Biofuel Alliance. India is the founding member. Take, for example, the International Big Cat Alliance, something that Maneji will really appreciate because he's such an avid enthusiast of environment and tiger protection. The country has launched the world's first international alliance for protection of big cats. So we are no more a participant. Chalo baitak mein, we went to meeting, upittu kesar baat indodru. No. We decide what is the agenda of the meeting and we make sure that the outcomes are as we want, and we are a global leader that is recognized as an emerging voice all over the world. And that's what we have seen in G20, that's what we have seen in this thing. Now imagine the kind of things that the country has done. Just this is the last slide, just have a look at this. From India, the Prime Minister has now, during the G20, made this India, Middle East, Europe corridor. So from India, you will go to the Middle East, you will transport to, goods and services to UAE and Saudi and through Jordan and Israel, and you will go to directly to Europe. Now, what is this? At the beginning of the program, Mane sir made a very, very important statement. He said, before invasion, India's GDP at the global level was 27%. Why did we have that kind of a global dominance? Because we had trade routes like this all over the world. Because Indian traders, right from our numbers, right, the numerical system which came in India, later got the name Hindu-Arabic numbers. It happened because of this global trade route that historically existed. Because India was exporting goods, and it was exporting to the Middle East, it was exporting to Europe and all the global markets. After centuries of invasion, this had become a casualty. We had forgotten that we were actually doing business of this scale. Now, because we are rising, we are wanting to go back to that era when we had a 27% share in the GDP, and we are not only reclaiming our ambitions, we are also reclaiming our sea routes. This is an indication of a rising geopolitical power. Friends, this is the turnaround. 2013, the headline said this: economy grows at slowest rate in a decade. And now the headline says, India to be the fastest growing economy for the next 3 years. 2013, the headline said, industrial growth slows to 20-year low. 2023, the headline says, India's manufacturing hits 31-month high. 2013, banks' health, the media said, banks' non-performing assets have surged 50%. And 2023, Indian banks' bad loans fall to a 10-year roll of 3.9%. In 2013, rupee among the worst performing currencies in the world. 2023, rupee remains the best performer against other global market currencies. The next 25 years is our years. The next 25 years is India's time, which is why the Prime Minister said, yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai, Bharat ka samay hai. Thank you so much. You guys were a wonderful audience. Namaste.
सही समय है